So I'm going to talk about the first one, and that is when I use the word innocent, I'm not denying that shame can have tragic consequences, such as violence to oneself and others. But just suggesting that it arises from the universal wish to be loved. Shame arises from the universal wish to be loved. And when we reclaim the wish to be loved, then actually we begin to have access to compassion itself. So this is what I'm going to talk about, this wish to be loved for just a little while, because most of us have forgotten the wish to be loved, and as a result, our access to self-compassion decreases. So all of us feel compassion for something or someone. So for example, innocent beings like children and dolphins and pets. When we connect with an innocent being, the compassion flows. The same thing for us. When we connect with our own innocence, our compassion for ourself flows. And some people, particularly if they've been traumatized, they can't say, that I am fundamentally good, or there's a, innocent part of me that has never been wounded. They can't say that. But what they can say is, in the midst of all the suffering that I went through, I have always wished to be loved. I have always wished to belong. I have always wished to be appreciated and valued. This is something which is undeniable for every one of us. And when we connect with that wish, we find our innocence. Okay? And we were all born with a wish to be loved. We couldn't do a darn thing in this world when we were born. How did we get all our needs met? Food, clothing, shelter, touch. We got this by getting somebody to love us. And when we are loved, then all that follows. So Daniel Ladinsky wrote a poem based on Hafez that said, admit something. Everyone you meet, you say to them, love me. Of course, you don't do this out loud because someone will call the police. But think about it, this great pull in us to connect. Why not be the one who lives with a full moon in each eye that is always saying with that sweet moon language what every other eye in this world is dying to hear? So I say this to myself, I say this to you, admit something. Everyone you meet, you say to them, love me. Well, you may do this and I may do this, but mostly we don't know that we're doing this. We have forgotten the universal wish to be loved in us. And we have especially forgotten in people who are really annoying. Like if you have students, meditation students who are really annoying you, what you are seeing is what's called it's an unfortunate expression of a deeper need. And this is the need to be loved. When we can see this in our students and others, family members, the compassion flows. And when we can see this in ourself, the wish to be loved, the compassion flows. But we've forgotten. So why have we forgotten? We've forgotten because it has hurt. Remember I said the little child reaches out all the time and wants to be comforted and soothed, but is often rejected or dismissed, disregarded, even attacked, right? That's when we develop what's called insecure attachment. But what happens is, some people are received all the time and they have secure attachment, but because it has hurt, we've decided, no, I'm not going to reach out like this. In fact, we've even denied that we wish to be loved because it's just been too wounding to keep that awareness alive that I just want to be loved. I just want to be loved. We shut it off. We've moved on to other things like, I'm going to become like a great law professor, or I'm going to be like super sexy, or I'm going to be like really charming or funny, or, we've started to specialize to get love, but we've forgotten that we want this all the time. Okay? But what would happen if we remembered that we wish to be loved? In other words, if you woke up in the morning and put a hand over your heart and said, just as all beings wish to be loved, so do I wish to be loved. If you knew that when you woke up and then you walked into the kitchen and you saw your loved ones, you saw in your own heart the wish to be loved, what would you see in them? Something really similar. And then you go out on the street, somebody walks toward you. What do you see in their eyes? The wish to be loved. How do you feel toward that person when you see the wish to be loved? Mind you, mostly when we see people, we think about what they're wearing, what their dress is, or are they friend or foe? But what if each time you saw the wish to be loved? Would that change your relationship to them? And inevitably, the answer is yes. We would feel not so alone, not so afraid. In fact, seeing the universal wish to be loved really cuts through a lot of loneliness. What does all this have to do with shame? Shame is the belief that something is wrong with us that renders us unlovable, that we're too flawed to be accepted for who we are. So when we look deeply at the nature of shame, we discover that we would actually never feel shame if we didn't wish to be loved. This is amazing. When you are stuck in shame, like, oh my God, who said what to whom, and what does this mean about me, and so forth, none of that would exist if that primordial wish were not supporting your wish to be loved. And if in that moment, when you're caught in shame, you can just for a moment say, I only feel like this because I, just like every other human being in the world, just want to be loved. I am feeling so alone, so frightened, so overwhelmed because I just wish to be loved. When we can say that, things get really simple. And in fact, we slip through the net of shame. And because in that moment, we start to abide in a very humble, very simple place where shame originally never even existed. We develop the shame because we have been taught to behave and act certain ways, but what energizes it is the wish to be loved.